emergency Harbor Freight run to pick this up. Matco is sitting outside. He didn't have one on the truck, or I would have bought one from him. Rather support the tow truck than go to Harbor Freight. But desperate times come for desperate measures. Of course, I don't have one of these because we don't really have to make our own lines, because we normally have the pre-bent ones in stock. But being that this vehicle is a 2010, I can no longer get this brake line. Why? It's leaking right there. It's tight, everything's good, still leaking. Check that out, causing low brake fluid. And well, I need to replace it, so I need to get this freaking brake line and turn it into this piece of art. I know y'all up north are probably like, oh, that's simple, blah 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 blah. Well, if you're used to it down in the south, especially at dealerships, we ain't got to do all this stuff, man. Ours are always coming pre-bent and everything. So of course I didn't have that tool, so I had to take my happy butt to Harbor Freight and buy one. Does Fluff know how to flare? Now, if you'll notice, this is a bubble flare. It is not a double flare. So on the replacement line, I will be having to cut off this double flare and making bubble flares, or this thing may leak, and I'm going to have to reuse the fittings. Great. Now I need to get this tube to semi look like this one way or another using a little bender. So now we basically have our shape right there. I'm trying to get this as close to OEM as possible. Of course, I do have it a little long there, and I do have it a little long there. Any minor adjustments, man, we could just bend this stuff. I'm gonna swap over these couplings or these fittings and go from there. All right, I have the nuts, flare nuts swapped over. Now the reason I'm doing that is because the ones that came with this pipe, see how these nuts are flat? That's meant for a bubble flare, versus the ones that came with the pipe, those are for a double flare or a single flare. So that's the only reason why I'm reusing these flare nuts. So let me flare this thing out. All right, here we go. Here's the new one. Got the bubble flare going. Never done a bubble flare before. See how that one looks? So I believe it's bubbled at first, and as you tighten down this nut, it will eventually look like that. So you see my bends. I gotta get it close to OEM, guys. Now the fun part begins. All right, there we go. It may not be perfect by 100%, but man, it's in. How is it gonna leak? I don't know. I have it tightened up. I don't see no drips, but gotta apply some pressure and pump the brake pedal up. All right, so as of right now, I have 15 pounds of PSI going to the master. Not sure if I see a drip. I don't see it leaking here yet, and I don't think this one is leaking either. So time to bleed it. Now this job is completely completed. Now I did reuse those flare nuts in order for it to work with this style of flare, because the one that the line came with was for double flare, not bubble flare. So got this thing to work, pressured it up, drove it, slammed the brakes, no leaks found. So this is gonna be a freaking repair. I'll put a before and after to remind you of what the new one or what the old one looked like versus the new one. If you look right there, you could tell I could have gotten it a little bit closer, but I mean, you can barely tell. They're probably gonna be like, BS, I don't think he replaced it. Yeah, I did. So hopefully they appreciate it, since we couldn't source OEM no more. It's discontinued. I had to build it myself.
Fluffy the mechanic, wrenches doing magic, get grease on his fingers like some sort of tragic, working on Nissans